How do you feel about like calcium levels and iodine? Are those important to supplement, or do you not need to supplement those?
I am
I know
a
if people talked about iodine. I never supplemented iodine. I don't even know what the body needs iodine for, to be honest, but people talk about it.
Yeah, yeah. So I do recommend supplementing iodine. And
Oh, okay.
and the reason is, so a lot of people think that taking iodized salt, which is just table salt, has iodine, so that's sufficient. The reason the government put that in is because people were having goiters that because they were insufficient in iodine. And so that's why they created iodized salt. There's so many studies that show that the iodized salt does not have enough iodine because some of it gets evaporated in the air as they're processing it. There's also a lot of junk in iodized salt, so it's not ideal
Yeah.
for that reasons too. There's a lot of other countries that are suffering from goiters and other illnesses based off low iodine. So it's just something to consider. Every cell uses iodine. The main part of our body that really uses iodine also is thyroid. So you need proteins as well as iodine to then produce thyroid. So in my practice, if someone is having issues with thyroid markers, I will always recommend them to take a little bit of iodine, and you just use the
Huh.
iodine drops. And for some people that also suffer from, I don't know, I wouldn't say a genetic component of breast cancer, but I had somebody on my channel where they talked about they've done so much research where the increase in breast cancer is actually because of a deficiency in iodine. I haven't looked into it as much, but there's no harm in doing supplementing with iodine. There's old research that says if you use iodine, especially if you're hypothyroid, it'll exacerbate that. That was with radioactive iodine. It is not the same as what we're supplementing with. There's a test you could take. You take 50 milligrams of iodine, which is a lot, and you pee it out. And so that's the way the body works with excess iodine. You just remove it. If you're struggling with bromide and fluoride, they're all part of the same table of elements. If you take the iodine, it'll flush out some of that as well. So I think it's ideal if people can even take a little bit. And one of the benefits I hear from my clients is you'll feel like more tenderness and breast fullness in your breast when you take iodine. And then for some people in the morning, they'll feel more energy, especially if you're hypothyroid.
Huh. That's cool. And there's no downsides?
No, I know again, there's research where people will say, no, no, there's thyroid doctors that say it's so bad for you. But again, if you look at the literature, it's because it was radioactive iodine. It's not the same.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay. What about calcium?
So calcium is normally people are not deficient because of calcium itself. It's all the cofactors. So in order for calcium to go to the right places, it really depends on a lot of the cofactors. If you're eating sufficient meat, your stress levels are reduced. When you're stressed, you will bleed out more calcium. So it's not
Huh.
I'm not eating sufficient calcium. I know people get worried. Well, I don't eat fish. I don't eat fish with bones. And then I don't eat dairy. So where am I getting my calcium? Normally, it's not the calcium itself. If you need calcium, you can always supplement, but typically speaking, it's usually like the cofactor vitamin D or magnesium or high stress in the life of too much cortisol, for example. So I would look into a little bit of the cofactors of calcium, make sure that that is all sufficient, and then if it's still imbalanced, that's when you can then consider calcium. There's a lot of studies that show I think it's like mid-age women, they supplement calcium and then they have higher risk of heart disease. So I normally
Ah,
don't recommend calcium right away.
okay. That's good to know.
Yeah.
That's good to know. Okay, vitamin D. Is low vitamin D another sign of SIRS?
Yes. So
I'm
it's not in the literature, so I have to always preface that. I have seen, so I get very iffy about vitamin D because a lot of the vitamin D, I think they use certain ingredients that are similar to rat poison. I know vitamin D has been
ah,
super highly advocated for during COVID. So I am a little bit more cautious about it, and I've been a little bit less vocal about it. There might be incorrect numbers that we are chasing for vitamin D levels. That's one. And I could share a study with you. I'll give it to you afterward. But it says that actually the optimal levels like 25, and that people were reading the paper wrong. I haven't looked into it enough to say yay or nay. What I have seen is a lot of my clients, again, they're the sickest of the carnivore community. Their vitamin
yeah,
D is low. So a lot of them will do the D3, K2, 5,000, 10,000 IUs. It barely moves the
yeah,
needle, barely moves it.
yeah.
When they go through the SIRS protocol, they take the VIP. There has been a strong association with when the VIP regulates, the MSH goes up and all the symptoms start reducing. Their vitamin D goes up naturally.
Hmm. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this sounds interesting. Have you done any research looking into stem cell infusions for autoimmunity or NK cell infusions? Have
Not
you?
not a ton. I know that it's an option. So when people are unwell, the stem cells can maybe regenerate things or make things better in the system. I'm all for all of these things. I know that some people use adjunct therapies with carnivore, and I'm supportive of all of them. Even if you use CBD at night, melatonin, I mean, melatonin's kind of a hormone, so I'm just a little iffy with that. That's also affected by SIRS. I always say, get to root cause. So why do you need the
Yeah.
stem cells, right? If you think about a couple hundred years ago, no one needed that. If you want to use it to have longevity and live longer and healthier, maybe. But if you're doing it because you're not unwell, then figure out what's making you unwell first. And then if you want to use it, totally supportive.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, great. Okay, let me see. What else do I have here? Okay, so say you've done carnivore for a while. Say you've done a meat-only diet, like the Lion Diet, for a while, and you're trying to reintroduce foods. How do you suggest people reintroduce foods?
I always say, look at your symptomology. So if you came to this way of eating and you had diabetes, maybe fruit is the last one you want to reintroduce. If you struggled with gut issues, maybe foods with lectins are the last one you want to reintroduce. So it really depends on your current situation of why you went to carnivore, and then maybe not picking the certain foods that have certain anti-nutrients. So that's the first thing. But once you decide, okay, I'm going to add leafy greens or add some berries, always start, like I mentioned about the raw milk, start with your baseline. And I always measure a few markers for health. It's your sleep, your mood, your energies, your stool, and your hormones. And so have that baseline of health. If you want to do blood work, you can, but otherwise just go by symptomologies. And then use a food and mood journal, write down everything that you're noticing. And if you, let's say, want to introduce berries, maybe start with half a cup at lunch and just do one serving, and that's it. That's the only difference of what you're currently eating. And then write down how you feel. How do you feel after an hour? How's your mood? How's your stool? How's your sleep? And then the next day, maybe you do half a cup at lunch and then half a cup at dinner, and then do the same thing. And I know it's so cumbersome, but that's the best way to know, more than any IgG test, any food sensitivity test. If you haven't consumed gluten in forever, your IgG test is not going to pick that up, right?
Yeah.
So the best way is listening and honoring your body's reactions. And so after 3 to 5 days of using the same food and then increasing its dosage, if you are feeling fine, then that food is probably safe for you. And then you keep doing that with every food you want to reintroduce. And if you have a bad reaction, you want to go back to baseline by eating just the baseline foods you ate. Wait for that symptomology to go down back to your baseline, and then start with a different food. And you know that current food was not the food to reintroduce first.